Years ago, I wrote an article for the Brea Progress saying if I could choose any place to live in Brea, it would be right here along this street, the 400 block of South Madrona Avenue. And I still feel that way too. Why? Because for somebody who loves history, old homes, and architecture like I do, this is a very special place. It's the last intact, older neighborhood still left in Brea. Along the street are all homes that were built in 1921 and 1922. And curiously enough, their owners were all employees of the Union Oil Company. At that time, as shown in yellow on this map, Union Oil owned lots of land around tiny Brea, shown in green, including the old Stearns lease up in the hills east of what's now the 57 freeway and several workshops around the area employing local men. It directed its operations from the former 1910 Randolph School building located near the southwest corner of today's Brea Boulevard and Lambert. Anyway, getting back to this street, do you have any idea why the original owners were all Union Oil employees? Well, in 1921, so many people were coming to town that there was a major housing shortage. So Union Oil purchased a big chunk of property here and in the surrounding area and subdivided it into 62 lots. Only company workers were then able to purchase these lots, and the company financed the construction of their homes. After the City Council or Board of Trustees okayed the proposed development, 2 months later the first 5 of the 62 homes were built and ready for people to move into. The only photo I know of taken here around this time shows the back of these homes, plus on the left a section of the empty land where City Hall Park would later be built. Since all these homes here were built in such a short period of time, their building styles represent what was popular in the early 1920s. There's this Craftsman bungalow back there behind me built by a Union Oil electrician, and it always fascinated me because it has these tapered front porch columns, both in the front and also on the side. And I've never seen that before anywhere. A little farther down the street is this small Mediterranean-style home with the stuccoed walls, red tiles, and flat roof. It was built by an oil driller and is the only example of this kind of architecture on the block. The original owner of this colonial revival home with its round porch columns was a Union geologist. By the way, it's always been one of my favorite homes. Well, up here at this end of the block is the largest house in the street, and it's probably no surprise that its original owner was once a big company boss, a superintendent. I thought it might be kind of interesting for you to see what it looks like inside. So why don't we go in and take a peek? We're here in the living room, and it's very typical of a house built in the 1920s. Of course, there's the fireplace, and on both sides of it are the built-in cabinets that were so common during that period. Around the doors and openings is all this natural wood, which I'm really happy the owner has chosen not to paint over. In Craftsman homes, the dining room is usually right behind the living room, and that's the case here too. Also, as you can see, there are more built-in cabinets that were probably used originally to store the family's tableware. Back there behind this door is the kitchen, which has been updated over the years. But that's okay, because this is a house where people have to live and feel comfortable. It's not a museum. I'm just glad, though, that the heart of the house, the dining room, and the living room have pretty much stayed the way they were when this house was new. Anyway, beside the residential land this house sits on, Union Oil also purchased the property where old City Hall Park is now located. And since we're so close to the park, why don't we head over there now for a quick tour? With one exception, all the structures in this park were built between 1928 and 1930. The old City Hall, now restored outside and refurbished inside as the Brea Scout Center, was built in 1928 and served as our seat of government until 1980 when the Civic Center was open for business. The Plunge, which today is the oldest outdoor public pool in Orange County, opened its doors to swimmers in 1929 and has continued its popularity for over 75 years. And finally, the old American Legion building on the corner of Brea Boulevard and Elm Street had its groundbreaking in 1929 in front of a large local crowd. And over the years, it served the Legion and the City of Brea as the police department headquarters. Later it was an ambulance service, and soon it's scheduled to begin its new life as Brea's Museum and Heritage Center. The one exception I mentioned earlier to the constructions of 1928 and 1929 and 1930 is this, the park's gazebo. And when was it built? Well, in 1976 to commemorate the U.S. bicentennial. It was the first permanent new structure built here in the park in 46 years, and it took just 3 months to construct using plenty of volunteer labor. Its formal dedication took place on July 3rd. Why they didn't schedule it on July 4th, I don't know. Over the years since then, it served a variety of purposes, but every summer it gets its biggest workout at the weekly well-attended concerts in the park and at the annual July 4th Country Fair celebration. Oh, before I forget, right up there on top of the gazebo is the original wrought iron spire that once sat atop the tower at the entrance to Old City Hall. The one you see over there now was a gift in the 1990s from Brea's Mexican sister city of Lagos de Moreno. Something else about this park that you may or may not know is that over here, where the basketball courts are now, there was once a small pond where every so often someone would try their luck at a little fishing. Also, right here in this Memorial Rose Garden, there was once a huge octagon-shaped Schaffer Memorial Fountain which was removed in 1963. In Brea, as you probably figured out, this park and the surrounding Unional neighborhood are two of our city's most important historic assets because so much of our history is still here for us to enjoy. Fortunately, in 1988, due to the efforts of former Brea Councilwoman and Mayor Clarice Blamer and others, the park and its buildings were formally protected by being placed on the prestigious National Register of Historic Places. And they and the surrounding neighborhood represent an important picture of how Breans have lived in this city since the early 1920s. For this Did You Know segment of Video Brealine, I'm Brian Saul.